Hi everyone, it is time for the weekly video. Now, I think if you can count, you may have noticed that we haven't yet hit 200 subscribers. It would be unfair to make people wait too long, so whatever the number is at, I will be doing the draw next week. So next week I'll pick a winner from those who have commented this week, last week, over the past couple of weeks since I announced the prize, which is this Bruce Lee Blu-ray set. Quite a nice little set of movies there. You also get Drive on Blu-ray. You also get a DVD set of the Die Hard trilogy, because then you can pretend that it has remained a trilogy forever. And you know what is one added incentive? Like and subscribe, share away if you like, but just in time for Halloween season, the Pete Walker collection, which is the Anchor Bay Coffin DVD set, which I have held on to for many years. I love the films of Pete Walker. I think this is a really lovely set. It's been around a while. It's a little bit dusty, a little bit grimy, but it is in one piece. And as you can see, folds out nicely. Booklet is in there. I have upgraded a few of these, so that is why it is time to finally pass this on to someone who may give it a good and loving home. If you like Pete Walker, treat yourself. If you're unaware of Pete Walker, you should really check out his films, and that would be a nice prize. So same rules apply. I would like us to get to 200 subscribers already. I don't think it's going to happen in a big rush, so please make sure that you've commented, that you've interacted in some way. I will be able to take those names. I'll create some random number generator, give you all a number. I'll do it very fairly. I appreciate everyone who's taken part already. Say it was based around Bruce Lee, Brandon Lee, the filmography, the family, the ways of Jeet Kune Do, and anything you may have taken from his martial arts or his life philosophies. And some people have commented on a variety of those things, which is very nice. But it can be anything, you know. If you want to discuss some Pete Walker, I'm always up for that. If you want to discuss some different movies, I'm always up for that. I didn't get any new arrivals this week, so I was initially struggling with what to talk about in the video of the week. And there's been a little bit of pressure, because I appreciate, I've heard from people who now say, I enjoy watching your videos of the week and hearing what you're coming out with, whether it's opinions about movies or a little rant or reminiscing about some, you know, VHS memories or old movie times. But yeah, so, and then something came to mind, little rant, but also a kind of positive. If you watched the video from a few weeks ago, you will recall that I mentioned a VHS movie that I tried to watch called Night Screams, that was, to me, lost in the mist of time. Night Screams is a film I was able to finally revisit or see in its entirety, and it's not good. It's not a good slasher. It's my review on my blog today. The link will be there below. But yeah, it was one of those films that was in my mind for all these years, for the experience of trying to watch it as a young lad. And of course it was never going to live up to the reputation I tried to create for it in my head. But that was fun to mark that out of the way. Other things I wanted to mention though, once again, I listened to a lot of other podcasts, so it was nice to have the Cracked Reel podcast coming back this week after an absence of 8 months. So my friend Kevin hosts that, and our Kevin from over in the Emerald Isle. And I think he always is quite self-deprecating and has the same kind of rambling and sometimes nonsensical approach to these things that I do. But I appreciate that he is delivering opinion and comment on films rather than just rehashing plots, telling you stuff you can find in other places. So that was great. Dawn of the Dead, I mention here quite often. She didn't drop an episode yet this week. I don't know if one will appear maybe next week, but she is on, I think it's called the Creepy and Geeky podcast. They were discussing the escape room movies, Escape Room and Escape Room Tournament of Champions, and that was a fun chat, and I enjoy those movies. I tend to enjoy any movies about escape rooms, although there have been some terrible ones. I think Death by DVD released the Barbenheimer chat for free to everyone, although it was initially just a Patreon pick, I think. So you should definitely look around and see if you can find that. And there's just been a really good variety of things I've been listening to, people who've been providing good commentary. But I was listening to a podcast episode from a few weeks ago, someone who was doing the Barbenheimer thing, and a guest on the show quite authoritatively relayed the information that the old woman on the bench was actually Barbara Handler, the the inspiration for Barbie, Ruth Handler's daughter, who Barbie was named after. Very nice little factoid dropped in there. That's what they were saying. That's not true though. So nobody pulled them up on it. It's actually quite easily checked online, because I think a number of people have made the same claim. The woman is actually, now I'm going to forget her name. I think her name's Anne Roth. I could be wrong. I've name checked her elsewhere before. She's a very famous Oscar-winning costume designer, friend of Greta Gerwig, and was, asked if she would take on that small role, and did so wonderfully. It was a great job. So the woman on the bench that Barbie talks to, the old woman, is not Barbara Handler. It is a Oscar-winning costume designer, and a woman worth celebrating in her own right, who's been in the business for decades. And let's get that correction out there. Let's have that be the truth, because it is the truth. There's a saying I think I may have mentioned before, that the problem with the world is that those who have those who have intelligence or wisdom are never quite sure of themselves, while stupid people are always absolutely sure of themselves. They always have the confidence. This is a problem in every walk of life, and I'm not saying I'm particularly wise or intelligent, but I am just saying, if you listen to podcasts and there are people who are always delivering statements and information with what sounds like complete authority, do occasionally cross-check their references, their information, and if all keeps panning out well, then that's great. But sometimes there might be slight inaccuracies, probably, obviously, just completely unintended. We've done it on the podcast. We try and correct ourselves live while we're recording and have a dozen tabs up on our computers, but things slip by, and corrections are always welcome. So that was the one thing. And the other thing was, again, with all of the podcasts I've been listening to, and all of the different shows that I do listen to on a regular basis, once again, I noticed a few newcomers to the field who do an episode or two and immediately have the, don't forget we're on Patreon. I've ranted about Patreon before, and then I became won over to the idea of Patreon by a few shows. So what was the first one I did? Was the Secret History of Hollywood. Wonderful for the extra content. I've mentioned that before. I pay a little for the WTF with Mark Maron podcast, and the extra content you get there is, I mean, it's a wealth of extra material. There aren't enough hours in the day. Night of the Living podcast is a lot of fun. I'm glad to be going through their back catalogue, and of course Death by DVD, who I've sort of gotten to know a lot more over, I think it's about the past 6 months. and then made more of a concerted effort to keep up with their shows because I like the way they discuss and dissect movies. So obviously there's still a wealth of back episodes there that I need to check out. So great. And if you do Patreon, if you pay people that you enjoy listening to, that's great. That's really nice of you to support a podcast in that way, and to show support for people you might consider sort of long distance friends or just people that you're fans of. But if you don't want to do that, then do remember that you can still share, like, subscribe. You can support podcasters and content creators in a variety of ways, whether it's just helping to get their work out there, occasionally commenting so that they know they're not just shouting into a void, just having the engagement. Again, that's why I really like Mastodon. I'm staying there compared to X/Twitter, which is just dead to me. I wouldn't try Threads because I don't want so many ads, and Blue Sky just seems both unpleasant and quiet. But there's so many different ways. I think it's a little bit presumptuous for podcasts to start up and then get their Patreon ready. I think you should have a proven track record and then be willing to make some really extra value for what will be paying customers. All of the podcasts I mentioned have been going a long time. I think most of them have been going for at least a decade. That's a proven track record to people who've been listening to them for all those years. And whether or not you want to contribute to that, they deserve to try and take things up a notch and to see something come back for that. Don't start a podcast like last week and be like, this is our episode, and by the way, folks, here's our Patreon, and occasionally release a 5-minute clip where you're talking about how you just saw the trailer for The Exorcist and think it looks amazing. That's just rubbish. And everyone has a finite amount of money, apart from the people who can go into space and rockets for fun. But there's only so much money in the world, and everyone else cannot have a Patreon. You're just putting more and more and more out there, fighting for the same finite amount of money from people who may want to support a lot of people they know, but don't have the funds. I would rather we kind of really slim down Patreon. Like, you could only do a Patreon if you've been podcasting 5 or 10 years. That would be great, but it's not going to happen. So that's my rant about Patreon though. And it's very specific because, as I say, I used to be very against the whole notion of it. I'm now a convert, but it is with people who have had that track record already in place. And then I've discovered them, and I've realised, by paying this amount, I can then access a huge back catalogue of great content that I enjoy. And I like that. But there is the flip side. At Raiders of the Podcast, we don't do that, and we're not looking to monetize anything here. I think we generally just keep our costs to a minimum. This is why it's very shoddy and unprofessional, and we're just happy if we get our voices out there and 1 or 2 people like what we say sometimes. So we have very low expectations, minimal expectations, and that's it. So I think that'll always be the way. Although who knows, there may be a board meeting next week and I'm outvoted. But we should be good. We should be good for a while yet. So I hope you do listen to the podcast. Next week we are covering The In-Laws, and Bunny Lake is missing. Craig got to pick The In-Laws because I was Mr. Sleepyhead and missed the recording of the podcast last week, so he got my choice. Dave picked Bunny Lake is Missing, which is an Otto Preminger film I saw a few years ago, and I remember that being quite a top-notch film. The reputation of both of those movies is really good, so do check them out if you want to play along at home, as it were. And I hope you enjoyed last week's episode with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake being covered and Get Duked, which I know I spoke to quite a few people who were fans of Get Duked. I've not heard from as many people who are fans of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, but I am. I mean, no, Tyler was, because he picked it. I'm quite a big fan. I think it's a really good remake. So if you want to listen to that, if you're not a fan of the film, you can listen to the episode, get angry at us, and then be ready to engage with us for future episodes. Comment here, send us an email, do whatever you like. All the contact details and all the links will be there when I get it sorted after this video. Until next week, bye.